Jo Swinson began this campaign insisting that she could become our next Prime Minister, but the party's been sagging a bit in the polls recently and is looking to re-energise the message the Lib Dem leader is with me. It's not gone terribly well so far, has it, Jo Swinson?
Well, I'm enjoying the campaign.
Good.
Clearly, there's been a squeeze. The result of Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage stitching up that deal between them has clearly affected the shape of the campaign. But Liberal Democrats are challenging in seats right across the country. We are on course to win seats, particularly from the Conservative Party. And I'm looking forward to having many more Liberal Democrat MPs in the new Parliament.
It's interesting you mentioned the Conservatives there, because one of the reasons for the squeeze, we were told, at this part of the campaign, what lots of people were expecting was a hemorrhage of pro-Remain votes coming from the Labour Party into the Liberal Democrats, and it doesn't seem to be happening. If anything, the reverse. Is it possibly because we now have the Labour Party giving a very clear offer of a referendum with either a Remain or a relatively soft Brexit on the ballot, and Remain voters scratch their heads and say, if that's the case, why would I vote Lib Dem?
I think it's a more typical squeeze, and I think what we saw from Jeremy Corbyn over the weekend has been quite astonishing. That, we're used to him not answering the question about whether he'd be Remain or Leave, but for him to actually say that he's never going to give us the answer to that question, and that even if he were Prime Minister and there was a people's vote, that he still would stay neutral. I mean, frankly, people who voted Remain, they want a leader, not a bystander, and they know they can't trust Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party to stand up for them.
But if I was a shrewd Remain voter and I looked at that and I listened, I said, yes, that's true, he's going to be neutral, but what's he offering in that referendum? He's offering a very soft Brexit or staying in. It's almost a win-win situation. And I say again, if I was trying to play clever and be tactical with my Remain vote, I might very well now give it to the Labour Party.
Well, if you're a Remain voter, the last thing that you want to happen is for Boris Johnson to win a majority, to see through his hard Brexit deal, which, by the way, could turn into a no-deal Brexit in just over a year's time at the end of next year. So that would be the outcome that you really don't want to happen. Now, who's going to stop Boris Johnson getting a majority? Well, if we look at things as they stand, it's not the Labour Party. Even in seats like Grimsby, Labour are not even managing to hold their own, whereas Liberal Democrats are genuinely challenging the Conservatives, including in seats that have been, traditional long-held Conservative seats of former cabinet ministers, places like Finchley and Golders Green, Kensington, Esher and Walton. Right. There's a real opportunity for Liberal Democrats to win seats from the Conservatives and stop Boris Johnson and his bad Brexit deal.
I was talking to Angela Rayner a moment ago about WASPy women. What's the Liberal Democrat offer to WASPy women?
Look, we know that there's currently the court case. The Ombudsman will be then looking at this issue, and we think that we should see what they say and obviously respect what the Ombudsman comes up with. I don't think it's helpful to anybody to put forward uncosted pledges. I mean,
they are costed. They're just big.
Well, they're costed, but where's the money coming from is the question which was not answered, and you obviously asked that question, and there wasn't an answer. Anybody can write a wish list and say all of these wonderful things that people could have. But I think people generally know that you don't get something for nothing. And Liberal Democrats are also saying where we would get the money to pay for the things that we are putting forward. We're not saying it can all be just somebody else's money that pays for it.
So basically there isn't an offer to WASPy women from the Liberal Democrats at the moment?
No. I mean, we absolutely recognise that people were not given the information they needed, and that's why we will obviously take on board what the Ombudsman says when they have their findings.
But you're not going to pay them back?
I think the Ombudsman may well recommend that there should be compensation, and but obviously the level of that
and then you'd have
remains
to
be seen.
Yes. OK, I was watching the Sheffield Question Time interview, which didn't go completely well for you. One of the reasons seemed to be that there's still a huge amount of anger among left-leaning pro-Remain voters about your record during the coalition, not just the Lib Dem record, but your own record. And you said you made mistakes then. Just explain to us what kind of mistakes you were making.
Well, Yeah, we were in a coalition government and we didn't get everything right. I mean, I think about the battles that I fought with the Conservatives day in, day out, and they weren't often seen because obviously you have a government where you have collective responsibility. But, you know, my particular ministerial responsibility was employment rights. So constantly we had the Conservatives wanting to drive a coach and horses through trade union legislation and slash workers' rights, and we held them back on so many things.
You did.
Of course, you then saw what the Tories did when they were on their own with the Trade Union Act.
You held them back, but for instance, you voted through yourself a 17% cut in social care budgets. What was going through your mind at that moment?
Look, you know, was it difficult to be in government at a time when there had been an economic crash and our economy was in special measures, effectively?
Yeah.
Of course it was, because we were making cuts. And I didn't go into politics to make cuts.
Well, but nonetheless, you voted for 16,000 fewer police officers. You voted for that. And again, I ask, it's not a mistake that you make kind of because you weren't watching or you weren't thinking about it. What was going through your mind when you decided it was a good idea to cut 16,000 police officers?
So we were making difficult decisions in the context of the economy being significantly smaller as a result of the financial crash. And some of that was unavoidable, and some of those things we got wrong. And I'm really sorry we did not win more battles in that coalition government. But I tell you what, I was fighting every single day, and I am still fighting for the things that I believe in. And what we are setting out in our plan for the future is more investment in the police, in schools, making sure children get the best start, free childcare for people, making sure that we tackle the climate emergency. We've got an ambitious plan for the future.
Let's pick up on that, because there is still some suspicion among voters that you're in it more for the better off than the people at the bottom of the heap. And if you look at your free childcare policy, very, very popular, I'm sure, with lots and lots of families with children aged between 2 and 4 want to get back to work. I do understand all of that, but it's also an enormous giveaway to better off families.
Can I also just say, it's not just for those between 2 and 4. What is particularly unique about what we are saying is that at the moment, the significant help with childcare costs does not kick in until children are at least 2, and for many families not until they're 3. And that is no good for somebody who finds themselves at the end of their maternity leave. They're not getting paid for that anymore. And they look at the cost of childcare and it is eye-wateringly expensive. And many people are forced into a situation where they do not have the choice to go back to work. And that doesn't just have an impact for them there and then. That has an impact on that family's income for years and years to come. So by giving people that choice, including people on low incomes.
I get all of that, but my question is, this is a huge giveaway to better off taxpayers.
Well,
is that really a sensible thing to be doing right now?
I think it helps families who are struggling, and from a range, including people on low incomes, because there are many people who look at the amount of money that they would get if they're going to work because they're not earning a huge amount of money, and they look at what it would cost to put their child in childcare. Then they find that they're not just out of work for a few months. It can end up being several years, and that has a massive impact on their earning potential for years and years to come. And let's face it, many of these people are women. They are predominantly women, and we know there is a gender pay gap. Women are lower paid than men. This is a policy that will help to right that injustice.
Now, we've talked about the coalition in the past. Let's talk about the future. It is just possible that you're not going to win an overall majority and become Prime Minister in this election, but that nobody has a majority and that you have real heft, you have real leverage in the next Parliament. What is the single thing that you most want to achieve with that leverage?
Well, of course, the Liberal Democrats want to stop Brexit, and we will be campaigning to stop Brexit. OK, so if that's the case, Jeremy Corbyn is offering a referendum. You may not like every aspect of what he's saying, but he's offering a referendum, and Boris Johnson very much isn't. Doesn't that mean that you are inevitably going to have to lean towards the Labour Party and help them form a government, vote things through for them rather than the Conservatives? Well, first of all, as things stand, Boris Johnson is on course to get a majority, and Liberal Democrats are the best placed party to stop him.
You think that's what's happening at the moment?
If you look at the polls right now, that is what they say. Now, there is obviously 2.5 weeks to go in this campaign, and I'm working very hard to change that situation.
You're not conceding yet, but you think that he's going to win.
Of course I'm not conceding yet. Liberal Democrats are campaigning hard right across the country, and we are making real inroads. But we need to make sure we win those seats from the Conservatives, and we're in a position to do that in a way that Labour simply is not. If
he doesn't win an overall majority and he comes to you saying, listen, Jo, I never thought I don't want to do this. I'm doing it through gritted teeth, Jo. But to get my deal through, to get my withdrawal agreement through, I'm prepared to offer the Liberal Democrats a referendum on that deal afterwards. What do you say to him?
Look, I'm not putting Boris Johnson or Jeremy Corbyn into number 10, but if there is a law in Parliament that I need to vote on, if there is a law in Parliament that I can vote for that makes sure that the Brexit deal is put to the public with the opportunity to remain, I will vote for that. We have always said we will vote for that.
OK, so if Boris Johnson tries to do a deal with you whereby he gets his withdrawal agreement through the House of Commons, he delivers his promise to, quote, get Brexit done, but in return for that, he gives you a referendum, you say yes.
I'm not doing a deal, Andrew. I'm going to vote for the things that I'm standing up for the things that I believe in. And I believe that we should stop Brexit, and it may be that a people's vote is the best way to do that. We have campaigned for that for more than 3 years. And so, as we have said over the last year, if we can put a specific Brexit deal to the British public with the option to remain, Liberal Democrats will support having a people's vote. We will vote for that legislation.
Let me ask you, finally, on trans rights. As I was talking to Angela Rayner, at the moment there are at least 2 major requirements before you can get the certificate for transitioning. One is a medical certificate for gender dysphoria, and the other is to show that you have lived for 2 years in the gender to which you want to be assigned. Will the Liberal Democrats remove those hurdles, if you like? Yes.
Look, this is a hugely difficult issue for many people who are finding that they are discriminated against, that they are finding themselves with significant mental health problems, that they really, really struggle with the way society responds to this issue, and particularly the way in which the media debate on trans issues becomes so vicious so quickly. It is really important that everybody, no matter whether they are cis or trans, whether they are gay or straight or bi, whether they're men or women, everybody can be themselves and live and be free to live their lives without discrimination. And at the moment, the hurdles that are there are, I do not believe that they are justified. They are not a sensible way forward. Other countries have made this change already, and it has worked well. And we should do that too.
Under the Equalities Act, at the moment, there are certain so-called safe spaces, women's refuges and prisons and so forth, which are able to turn away trans people. Will you change the Equalities Act to stop that happening?
There's not some kind of hierarchy of equalities. Everybody matters, and you can't say that, you know, trans women or cis women, you know, that one group is more important than another.
Do you change the act?
No, what all of those places have to do. You know, if you're in a refuge and you have...
Yeah, let's take the example of women's refuge.
And if you have a woman who comes to that refuge who is being abused by her partner is a same-sex partner, then clearly that refuge has to be making sure they're doing a risk assessment on those coming in, because you wouldn't want to have a situation where that partner who'd been abusive was in the same refuge. So this isn't an issue about gender. This is an issue about managing that risk, and that has to be done with all of the people that a refuge is accepting. And trans women are often at significant risk of violence and abuse within relationships.
So, very finally, do you think the Equalities Act needs to be changed, therefore, or not?
Well, I think the Gender Recognition Act needs to be changed. I think the Equality Act does a good job. We have different protected characteristics because every individual in this country, no matter who you are, deserves to have protection on all of those different fronts.
Very clear. Jo Swinson, thanks very much indeed for talking to us this morning. Now.